Good morning, everyone. This is Vasu Deshpande from Easylib Software Private Limited. Today's topic of webinar is freedom from complexity in IT deployment. We are going to go in depth about the various complexities you are going to face when deploying any new system, and we are going to see how you can address those complexities and how Easylib will help. Just a little bit background about Easylib. Easylib is a company which is helping the colleges improvise their operations by providing the software for both campus automation as well as the library automation. We are very thankful to over 630 customers who are there all over India as well as other parts of the world and using our software. The webinar series was started about 2 months back. So far, we have conducted about 25 webinars and nearly 500 people have attended various webinars and nearly 2000 people have seen those webinars on the YouTube channel. Today's topic, we are hoping it will really help you in addressing the information technology challenges. Okay, let's get started over here. What are the complexities in information technology? If you see over here, we did the groundwork and then found out that there are about 20 of them actually. So different technology complexities when we take and then regroup, we find about 20 complexities starting from gathering the requirement. That is the very first one where the requirements themselves are very complex quite often. Then once you get the requirements, how will you put them in the proper roadmap so that you are poised to run this application for decades together. Then technology options, customization and configuration and so on. It goes all the way till continuity in the direction, sustainability, long-term direction, and long-term maintenance. So let's get started with the very first one, that is the requirements. So what do we mean by requirements? So first of all, let me answer a question. Why people invest on the information technology? Primarily, there are three reasons why people invest in the technology. The first one, increase the revenue. Every company wants to improvise its operation, provided it's going to help its revenue. Or second one is reduce the cost, right? And the third one is to be compliant with the government regulations, the audit body requirements, and assessment bodies recommendations. So every organization, whether it's a not-for-profit organization, whether it's a college, university, a government department, or a company, the first goal is to increase the revenue. Second is to reduce the cost and thereby increase the profits or the surplus. And the third one is to be compliant with various um, the auditory requirements. And then additional things follow. How can we offer? How can we improvise our quality? Right. So that's a major thing. In case of the education institutes, that's a primary thing over here. By using the technology, can we offer better education to our students? Can we have our students participate in more and more conferences, present more and more papers, and then make our institute name much well known in the international arena? Okay. Now, as an IT manager, what are the complexities you will face? Because every one of these people who is in charge of increasing the revenue, who is in charge of reducing the cost, who is in charge of increasing the quality, who is in charge of making the compliance thorough, all of them give requirement to you. So requirements will from hundreds of sources, from different sources the requirements will flow and the list becomes very big over here. As you see over here, somebody, when you start this exercise, coming up with the full requirement itself is a very complex activity. To give an example, a requirement can be as simple as I need an e-commerce site, right? Or I need a facility where students are able to do a lot of self-help operations on our college website. That's a simple requirement. But when it break it up, right, it becomes extremely large, right? And it becomes extremely complex. So what do we need to do? Let's see here. So the simplest solution, right, to reduce the complexity in the requirement is to be organized, hold more and more discussions, document everything together, make sure that all of them are easily accessible. That is the first part. Second part, you want to study the requirements analysis done by other organizations. So if you are a university and you have got inclination to develop a new application, you need a new application. So rather than starting from the scratch, what you may want to do is go and study the requirements of other universities which have developed the similar applications. Right? Then the third one is you want to see a lot of tenders, RFP, request for proposal, because many organizations might have done the work before you did the work. So you want to study, you want to hold the discussions, read more and more things, and then come up with your own set of requirements. Quite often, we also see many times people have control C, control V. That's take one organization's requirement, copy it for your own organizations, right? So that may be a starting point, but it is not the best part because what is good for another organizations may or may not be good for you. So you will be posed with lot of questions. Should I do this? Should I do this? Yes, no, maybe, right? And then there will be a lot of delays because the if other organization has faced the difficulty, you will end up with the delays if you follow this control V also. So you have to see multiple cases and then make sure that you put enough effort to come up with the solid requirements. Coming up with a good requirement, it's not an easy task. It is not a cheap task also. It requires a lot of effort and lot of investment. Right? So this is the tough way to get started. What we have done, how we help in Easylib. What we have done is at Easylib, we have done all this work together. We studied the requirement of various universities. We studied hundreds of requests for proposals. We went through a lot of tenders. We put our own imagination. We held the discussion with a lot of the academicians. And then finally came up with a solid requirement document that will help your organizations utilize the best of information technology. So one of the simplest solution for you will be to partner with Easylib. So let's go to the next slide that tells about the next complexity that's related to drawing a roadmap, right? So in the first one, what we did, you have done the study and came up with a lot of requirements, right? So now you want to put a roadmap. So in the roadmap, what you're going to do is, what am I going to do this month, this quarter, next quarter, this year, next year. So you are going to put a complete roadmap. Whether you like it or not, the very first thing that you have to put it on the roadmap is address your pain points. Again, Easylib comes into picture because we have tried to make the job of drawing a roadmap for you very easy. Because at Easylib, we have developed the software to thoroughly ensure that all of your requirements are covered or many requirements are covered. Let me, rather than going more into the Easylib now itself, let me pause it for the end of the webinar where I will cover each of these items, how they are addressed by Easylib. So right now, let me focus only on the complexities part. The first part you want to address when developing any roadmap is to address the roadmap through adding the reducing the pain points that you have got. The second one is what is the long-term horizon? You want to hold the discussion with the business and then you come up with their business goals, correct? So you want to make sure that your roadmap, IT roadmap, is in sync with the business roadmap. So that is the second way you can improvise your roadmap. But you got to watch out one item carefully over here. That is, when you want to draw a roadmap, you get hundreds of requirements and everybody wants attention. I want this feature this quarter. The sales wants, the operational improvements team wants, the quality team wants, the NAT team wants, all of them want changes to the information systems in this quarter itself. So you got to do a budgetary analysis. How much budget you have got, how much you want to allocate, how much you want to spend, how much you want to get the budget as per the next year goes. So a lot of these you want to do a validation and then improvise your roadmap, right? Couple of things that you need to watch over here. The one is conflict of interest because budgets are always limited and the requirements are more. And everybody competes to put their item in the roadmap over here. So whoever is the IT manager, if you are a CIO, if you are the head of information technology, you want to make sure that you handle the conflicts among the different requirements well. And lastly, you want to make sure that this is sustainable over here. It should be continuous. It shouldn't happen that you come up with a beautiful requirements now. Next year, the head of the organization changes. Maybe it could be the principal, it could be the registrar, it could be the vice chancellor. When they change, your existing roadmap should not get impacted all over. Of course, it may have improvements. Of course, it may have changes, but it shouldn't happen that everything of the past is scrapped. So, if you're an IT manager, you want to make sure that your roadmap withstands changes in different positions. So, that is the second complexity you want to handle, right? Okay. Third complexity, what will you face? When you want to develop a new system for your organization, one of the most complex items is related to choosing the right technology. If you have a very small organization, you just want to track all your data at one place, you can even do it using Microsoft Excel, right? You want to see, okay, how many students are in your college? Simply have all the names, addresses, phone number at one place. But is that sufficient? Not at all. Why? Because when you are maintaining this Excel in one sheet, how should other people access? And how should the changes be done? When you do the changes at your end, how will the people at the other end get those changes? When they want to do the changes, they do the changes in their Excel. How will it get reflected into your own Excel? So, the very first part using this monolithic, simple Excel based system has all this complexity. It is simple, but at the same time, it is not at all scalable. Right? So, the next step is going with the client server application. What is client server application? You have one server, connect the different clients connected to the same server through the LAN over here. So what is the advantage of that? It is running in a small environment of about 4, 6 or 10 computers. Another advantage, it doesn't require internet because you are deploying the software on each of these machines, which in turn connect to the database, which is sitting on the server. So as long as you have LAN, you have good infrastructure for the desktop application is concerned. But do your students get access to this software? No. Can you build different interfaces? Your options are very limited. Can it be scalable? Not at all. Why? Today, you have Windows 7, then you have Windows 8, Windows 9, Windows 10, 15, 19, and so on. So every time the operating system changes, you need to redeploy the software. And is that software going to support the new operating system? You are not sure. So that is the complexity you will face in the client server applications. And the third level that you want to go with multi-tier application, wherein the database resides in one server, the software resides in another server, and all the computer access this particular software only on the browser. That is the web application. And the next step is you want to go with a cloud architecture, wherein you have this web application hosted on a cloud server. So there you don't worry about the nitty-gritty of managing the servers on a day-to-day basis. The cloud provider manages those infrastructure things, and you focus on the usage. Now, as an IT manager, you have multiple options over here. Whether you want to go with the simple Excel, you want to have a desktop application, you want to have a homegrown application, or you want to go with a cloud application, you want to develop the application entirely on your own, or you want to partner with somebody like Easylib. Different options you need to think. So that is the third one. That is the complexity related to technology. Let me go to the next one. Configuration and customization. So every software needs customization and configuration based on your requirements. If you are exact replica of another college, you can take the software from one place and then deploy it at your organization. But even things like your college name has to change, right? You may want a different look and feel. The workflow may be different. The people are different. The access levels are different. All of these come under configuration and customization part over here. As far as the software is concerned, the look and feel, the color code, the logo, the workflow, the kind of reports that you want, the dashboards that you want different integration that you may want to build with other applications, and how should your mobile application look? All of these are part of the software customization. When it comes to the security, you have access controls. Who should get access to the what portion of the application? How are you configuring your backups? How often are you taking the backup? Where is it available over here? Which roles have got which access? Okay, is the language localization possible? Right? So, how is your network is configured? So, all of these are part of the system customization over here. So as an IT manager, you want to make sure that you take care of these complexities when you go with any new application. All right. The next complexity that you face is related to the data migration and conversion. So, where does the data migration start? Why is it required? Let's take simple example. You were maintaining a simple Excel-based application earlier, and then you find that it is not sufficient to maintain that Excel data. You want to give your students access to the software. So you want to directly move to the cloud application over here, right? So you want to migrate this data from the Excel to the new application. So that is one need where often the data migration needs to be done. Next one, larger machine, right? So you are using one machine which has got about, let's say, 512 MB, or you don't even have 512 GB database. That is already full. So you want to upgrade to the newer one of 1 TB, right? And you were using a small machine which was configured and you started using about 10 years back. Now it has become very slow. So you want to go to the newer machine. So you want to get a bigger, better machine. So that is another need where you take the data from here and then you migrate to the new one. Can it be 100% done from here to here? Not possible always. Example. So many of you may be using the Microsoft Access on your Windows 2000 machine. Microsoft Access of 97 on Windows 2000 machine was a good combination. But now you can't get Microsoft Access 97 now. You got to go with Microsoft Access 2020 version or the Microsoft SQL version. So the exact database from here to here cannot be migrated. So you got to use the different data transformation and transfer routines over here, right? So you have the source data, you have the target system, you use these tools to migrate the data from one system to another one. So that's the part of this larger machine migration. Next is new database. The example was MS SQL 2005 to MS SQL 2019, or older access to the newer access. Next reason why we have this data migration, corrupted data. You have a server, you are using this for last 10 years. Now you find that for whatever reason, the database is corrupted. And now you can't restore it on the same machine. So what you would do, you get a new server and then you upload all this data into the new one. So that's part of the corrupted data migration that you do. The next one is the data type changes. Say, for example, if you have all your student IDs as numbers, and as per the new education policy, or as per the new one, you want to give a university USN, which is a text plus numbers. All your data was numbers. Now it is text plus numbers. It's a string. How will you convert? Right? So that is another thing that you need to do. For example, another one that we see quite often is the phone numbers. In your previous systems, you might have had a phone which was a text. People put something like 1 2 3 4 5 space 5 6 7 8 9. Somebody might have put STD code, space, and the phone number. Now, when you want to convert it to the new one, you may have defined it as a number. Why? Because putting in the number gives the ability to send SMS. So the data type has changed. How will you migrate from here? That's another need wherein you need to follow the best practices of this data migration and you have to face those complexities. Expanded tables. Earlier you had 5 columns, now you have 20. What should happen to the remaining fields? Okay, I take the data from here, put it into the new one. So this is another reason why the data migration happens. What complexities you see over here? The first complexity that you see in the data migration is the sheer volume of the data. Suppose you have got 2000 people getting admission into your organization every year, and over last 20 years, right, you have built a data of about 40,000 students. And if you want to migrate all the data into the new system, imagine this, 40,000 rows of the students have to be created. And if each student has made, let's say, about anywhere between 5 to 10 fee transactions, you end up with lakhs of fee transactions over here, right? So that is one complexity that you have to face. Second is the data integrity. For example, earlier you might have the vendors as full vendor names was written or publishers was written. But now in the new database, new software, you want to come up with normalized database rather than having the vendor like Tata McGraw Hill, Tata Space McGraw Hill, TMH. You want to have one vendor code, right? So now all the three have to be combined into one. So that's the data integrity, that complexity you will face. Then the next one is the default new fields. Many times you have the database which is having the numbers and the date fields. Are you going to leave it as blanks? Are you going to fill with a certain date? Are you going to put a certain number? What are you going to put there? So that the complexity you will have to address related to what will be the default values for each of these databases. Then migration time business flow. What does it mean here? Say, for example, in this application, right? This database was connected to your real-time application. So now after the migration, all the applications have to connect it to this database. But does it happen always? It shouldn't happen that you migrate all this data from here to here, but the application still points to the old one. All the updates will keep happening to the old one itself, and the new one has the new data, but all the updates are in the old one. So you will end up in a mess over there. So you got to address this particular complexity of how are you addressing migration time window with respect to the business. Okay. The next one is the data loss. Truncation. Example, right? If the old database has got about, let's say, numbers starting from 1000 to, let's say, 1 million, and in the new one, for whatever logic, you allow up to 10,000. So what should happen to the remaining one? And in the old one, the data field might have been, let's say, about 512 characters. In the new one, you have only defined 256. So the remaining data gets truncated over here. So that you need to address. Or there could be one value, 99% of the values of one particular field may be in the same format, but in the next one, there is an extra one over here. So there is again a truncation, overflow. There is the format issues, right? In some places, the date might be stored as a DD, YY. In some other places, it could be YY. So then, when you take this data and then put it exactly on the other side, the date becomes month and mine becomes date, and it becomes a big mess over here. And I have faced this issue when my own date of birth got reversed. So month became date and then date became month. And that's possible. That's with one of the banking systems that happened like that. So this is one of the complexities that happens when you migrate from one system to another system over here. Then there is an integration. What does this integration mean? So you have that old system and you have a new system, right? Old database, new database. All the interfaces, all the new applications all the applications have to get the data from the newer one. So you got to build all those interfaces in addition to migrating your data. So that is the data migration integration part. Then how will you handle the bad data? Take an example. In the education institute, you are offering, let's say, 100 courses in a certain year. Next year, you revise, and then you are no longer offering those 10 courses. But if you delete those 10 courses from your database that you are no longer offering, what should happen to the students who studied last year on those courses? So that becomes an orphan data. Again, you got to address during the data migration. And the last part is the data security part. When the data migration is happening, lot of people may be working on your data, and they could be storing in the text file in a working PC. Now, let's say that PC needs to be replaced. So you give it to the service person. So he says the hard disk is gone. He puts a new hard disk and gives it to you. Good. But that hard disk, which is not accessible to you, may be accessible by somebody. So all the data that is sitting in this hard disk ends up in a wrong, it may end up in a wrong hand. So you want to make sure that this particular complexity related to addressing the data security during this data migration is handled. So that's the next complexity that you need to handle. Next, user training and adoption. Whenever you deploy a new software at your organizations, the very first thing that you see or many people ask is, why do we even need to upgrade to the newer application? Can't we live with the same one? So people are usually afraid of the changes. Eventually, the change may be good, it is required, but people have a lot of resistance from one application to the new one because they have used this application for decades together, and then they always find moving to the new one a little challenging. So, as an IT manager, what you want to do? You want to make sure that the people who are using this application, their anxiety level goes up. You make the new application look as though it's an old application. The transition must be very, 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 very smooth. Again, when you come to Easylib, right, we have made that work easier for you. Let me cover that later over here. But the first thing is fear of change. Then the next is what are the new benefits that the person is going to get? Unless the end user is convinced that the new application is giving him a lot more features, he will always be tempted to say, okay, my old application was the greatest application. So you want to make sure that as a part of this training, you create more and more awareness among people. Next is insufficient training because you have a large application, you go deploy, conduct a 1 week big bang training, and then absolutely no training for next 1 year. During the training, everybody says, I have understood the application. But when they start working, they have the difficulty. Then are you providing the hand holding? How are you giving? If you do not do that, you end up in a situation where you have the old application and you have the new application you have deployed after spending crores of rupees or at least a few lakhs of rupees. People use it for a 1 week or 2 weeks, then they stop it. I have seen in one organization where they moved from one application to the new one by investing lakhs of rupees. Today, the new application is sitting idle. Why? Probably the training part to move from the old one was not handled well. Okay? How we address that in Easylib? I'll explain it at the end actually. So again, this is an insufficient training is a major complex part in many of the IT installations. The next one is language and skills. Today's webinar is in English. Much of the software is written in English. The training materials are in English, but the end user may not have sufficient skills to understand what is being taught. So you want to make sure that those trainings are offered in the local languages and the skills, right? So the person who is using the application should have the skills to use that particular application. Not only you have to give the training on the application, you want to make sure that you give the training on the part which will help him use that particular application. The next complexity that you see in any of this IT implementation is poor user experience, right? So there is a beautiful, or rather there is a very big application, but the user experience is not good. People find it extremely hard to use it. It may have a lot of functions, but if it causes the people heartburn in terms of at least how learning how to use the application, it will end up in a scenario where the new application is not used at all. So the big issue that we face is poor user experience over here. Then the next one is the lack of communication because you are excited about application as an IT manager, your head of the departments are excited, but if your faculty is not excited on using this new application, you end up in a scenario again, you will see a lot of resistance from them. So this communication is a crucial part. Then there is a cultural difference over here. Because if you are used to an application which will work in a certain way, certain format, color coding is a certain way. But if the new application is totally looking different and it is not looking like a part of the old application, or your unwritten culture norms, the usage level dramatically goes down. And the last part that we see is overwhelming. The software is big, the training is conducted, and lot of expectations on the people over there. But the person who is working on it will feel too many things dumped on him. So as a result, you may see a case where the software does 100 things, the person uses only 1% of it. Let me take a break. All right, let's go to the next complexity that you face in IT installations. That is a user support and change management. You have an application, you have deployed this new application, and users require handholding. They need help. What are you going to do? You call the vendor says, I have deployed the software. That's it. And I have given you the training. But if the user is facing the difficulty, and the help is not available, then you have the trouble, right? Problem. So that is why you want to follow that. You want to follow this defined framework of how do we handle the user support and how do we handle this change management over here. This slide may not be visible clearly, but it starts with talking to the user to see what is the problem, giving you giving him the ability to open a ticket, assigning to the right people, getting it resolved, getting back to the users to state that the problem is resolved, then doing the service level analysis and assessment, and doing the root cause analysis to see what could be wrong in that particular application that caused this ticket. So the whole flow scientifically needs to be followed. Otherwise, you may end up in a situation where there is a very big application, and for the smallest of the small issues, people end up not using the application. So the top reasons where people have the difficulty, the help that people that required is the basic help. That is the 50% of the time the tickets system may be used for only the small things over here. Basic help that the user requires. Then there is a production issue. The software has to work in a certain way. It is not working. That's a production issue. Production request. You have this data. You need help in loading that over here. That's a kind of production request. Bugs found. Every software will obviously have bugs, right? So we do the software, we write the software, we test it, we want to make it as thorough as possible. But it is not a substitute. Our testing, the software company's testing, is not a substitute to the real life environment, right? So in that case, in a certain case, it may happen that the software may not function the way it is wanted. So the company needs to do those changes. How will those bugs get notified to the company? What do they do about those? So that's the fourth reason why the tickets gets open. The next is the enhancements. So new fields need to be added, new workflows need to be added, new integrations need to be made. So these are all the small enhancements that we see. And the last one is the new feature. You have this application, this much size, and then you need this much extra things that you require, right? So those are all the new features. So what you want to do as an IT manager, whenever you deploy a new application, you need to make sure that entire workflow of the ticketing system, user support, is well documented and implemented. All right, let me go to the next part. If you're deploying the software at your own in-house infrastructure, you need to make sure that you take a good look at the things that need to be handled with respect to the infrastructure. The first one is related to the hardware maintenance. What is this hardware maintenance? You need to procure the servers. You need to first decide which server you want to procure. You need to procure them. You got to put the things like AC, air condition, power supply, dual internet, and all these things. For example, it can get as complicated, for if I put over here Dell server pricing, you will see the pricing of the Dell server goes from anywhere between 3 lakh to 5 lakh, 10 lakhs. The Dell PowerEdge R650 is 4 lakh 52,000. Another one, 6 lakh 39,000. So if you're an organization, you are having about 1,000 students, and then you want to make sure that all of your students have access to the system, you better get that kind of servers. Otherwise, you may end up in a situation where you have an application, your 10 people use it, but all your students do not have access. I have seen in a few places where the software is beautiful, but the infrastructure is not sufficient. How do you address that? Again, we will at the end, and I will tell you how Easylib is helping make this job easier with respect to hardware maintenance. Then there is a software maintenance. You invested 6 lakh rupees, got a Dell, HP, or any of these rack servers, but you need to constantly implement this new applications on that front. This start the operating system, the WordPress that you are going to deploy, the databases, the new patches. That maintenance itself is a significant effort over here. So you need to maintain that software on that server that you get. Next is the network. You have this internet, you want a backup internet. You want to track how is the usage level, how the people are using, what is the load on the network. All of that you want to track. Next is the server, data storage. You get a beautiful server, let's say of about 2 terabytes and 10 cores or 16 cores. And now, if your usage is so high, or you have configured the backup to be taken every couple of hours, or retain for a longer period. How much our storage is big, that gets full. The CPU usage becomes more. The log files get full. Then you want to make sure that you address those items in your plan over. So the server, data storage, CPU monitoring, the log files clearing, all of these are part of the infrastructure activity. Then there is a security part. Who has access to those servers? Have you put a necessary restrictions over there? Have you opened only the particular ports in the firewall? Then who has access to that machine? And who has access to that database? That security need to be maintained over here. Then as the software gets used, you want to make sure that you are monitoring the usage over here. If the software and if the server memory usage becomes 90%, 98% at all the time, you have the risk. So you want to make sure that you immediately add extra capacity to ensure that the server memory usage is less than 60 or 70%, right? So lot of these things that you need to address. Next is backup and disaster recovery. What does this backup and disaster recovery mean? So you want to make sure that you have a system in place where you take the backup on a daily basis. And if the application is requires a real-time backup, you have this exact 24/7 real-time replica that's happening in another place over here. Then you not only take the backup, you also do a disaster recovery exercise. So what you do periodically, let's say once in a year, you assume as if this particular production server is not available. Then you immediately have another server. You try to restore all the backups from the new server onto this from the backup onto the new server, and you measure how much time is taking to get the entire application up and running. So that is the disaster recovery exercise. Should your server go down for any reason, if you have done the disaster recovery exercise earlier, you will be much better prepared to make sure that the softwares are up and running within a matter of few minutes or a few hours, and definitely not days or months. Right? And next is physical location maintenance. You have a server room. You need to make sure that you have the logs, you have the log is there, you have the access is control. It is not in a place people can come and enter without any authorization. All of these you need to make sure that you have addressed. The physical location security need to be maintained. You need to also have the compliance and regulatory requirements. Everybody who is entering the server log, everybody entering your office need to be having a log entry made so that you know who has entered your server room at what point of time. So these are all of the some of the complexities that you face while maintaining your infrastructure for your application. The next complexity that you face is related to the integration and interoperability. What does it mean? You have a master data of all your students, right? So you have the master data of all your students, and your students should be able to access your data, right? So you need a client portal, and that portal may be an app. How is the data going from your server to that app? How is that app talking to this application? So you need that integration. And you have the content management system. Lot of documents you are putting. Are the students able to access those? How are the students communicating between each other or between the faculty? How are you managing all your change requests? Your marketing system is there, campaign management system is there, admission system is there, attendance is there, student information, staff information, your alumni management, accounting system, CRM, e-commerce, multiple applications are there, all talking to your core application. Things could be as simple as entry gate exit system, right? So you have one application or one device fit at the gate, which will allow the people to go in and out. But how do you get that data from that device into your master database? That's a part of this integration part. This financial transaction, you want to collect the fees online, you got to integrate with the payment gateways like Razorpay, Paytm, and other people, which in turn connected to the banks and then get that. So that's an interoperability over there here. Then you have the admissions information over there in a different place that need to come to the master ones. You need to send the data to your university on a periodical basis. Again, how will you integrate with that? Placement data, if you have given the somebody else is handling your placement, how will they send the data to your master database? Right? All of these are part of the integration complexities that you need to handle while deploying any new application. Let's see, how do you handle this? So there are typically 4 or 5 common methods. One is a file transfer. You send the data on a periodical basis from the source system to the destination system. That's a push one. Again, what is the complexity here? You need to make sure that destination system is pulling the data out. And it is not rereading the same one of yesterday's data and then doing the transaction again. So those complexities need to be handled when you use the file transfer. And what is this API real time? Is you perform a transaction, immediately you call the application programming interface of this other application, you send the data. And that particular operation picks the data and does the update over there. So that's the kind of, that's an API. And then file transfer, pull system. What does it mean? You have your application and then you give access to the another application which will come, wake up at 9 o'clock in the night, come and connect it to your file and then server, take the file out. So that is the file transfer pull system. Or when you need, you connect to another server, get the data on a daily basis over here. So that's the file transfer system. Then the next one is the direct database access. To your database itself, you give some other application access. So that is the direct database access. That is how you make this integration and interface with the multiple application happen over here. Right? So your simplest example in a college or a library is, in a college, the interface is related to the in-out application using this the fingerprint reader or RFID. That's an example, right? So the moment a student borrows a book and he passes through that gate reader is calling our Easylib or any other application to tell that, hey, this student is going out with this particular book. Is it already issued or not? Right? So that is done through the different APIs or different methods. Right? So these are some of the integration and interoperability related complexities that you need to handle. The next one is scalability and performance. What is the scalability and performance? Take this application. You have designed this application for, let's say, 1,000 people logging into your application. If 1,000 becomes 2,000, 4,000, 10,000, immediately the scale goes down, the performance goes down. So that is, if it dramatically goes down, that means that the system needs improvement. However, if the system is well designed, you see that, okay, 1,000 people were logging in and this was the speed, and the usage becomes 10,000 people, the speed slightly reduces, right? Earlier, it was probably taking about 100 microsecond. Now it may take about 120 microsecond to respond. Correct. So that is how this performance and scale work with each other, and then you want to measure and then make sure that your application is as scalable as possible and able to handle large amount of data. And your performance, the speed of the application, the screen that I'm operating doesn't go down. The speed doesn't go down, right? So how do you address that? So you follow basically 5 methods. There could be more also. The many of the people, what they do is they simply add infrastructure. Okay, my machine has become slow. So and I was using 500 GB hard disk. I'll go and add another 500 GB hard disk. Very simple. I add extra RAM. I upgrade my CPU. I upgrade my hard disk. This is all called vertical scaling. Now, what does this horizontal scaling means? If I have 2 servers and the load on the server is going up, so I will add another 2 more servers and distribute the load. So this is called horizontal scaling. So vertical scaling means you add more capacity to the same server, and in the horizontal scaling, you add more capacity in terms of adding more servers. Now, is that the only method? No. What are the other methods? So what you want to do, whenever you face an issue where your performance is going down because of the scale, you want to see, identify which of the applications are taking more memory or causing the performance to go down. So you tweak those applications, you modify those applications to ensure that they work well even when there is a high load. That is much better than directly simply going and increasing capacity, because adding capacity requires, of course, investment. So increasing efficiency is a long term. So you want to start that. Then reduce complexity. That's another method wherein you can definitely improvise your performance. If you have 10 steps, can do it within the 3 steps, go ahead and do that. So that's the complexity evaluation. Then the next one is change the architecture. If the application is doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and as per the new application, it's going to do 3, 2, 4, 5, 1. So you are changing the architecture or the workflow, how the application is working, and you have the new one, and through that you may be able to get a better performance. And if none of these work, right, and if you have more and more requirement, your option may be directly change the application and upgrade to a better application over here. So that is how you handle the scalability and performance requirements whenever you want to go with a new application. Okay. All right. Number 11. What is this number 11 is about? Security, privacy, and threat. Any application that you have in your organization, you want to make sure that each of these you want to thoroughly evaluate, because the cost of the preventive maintenance cost of any of the security is much lower than reactive spend at the end. So first you want to make sure that you authenticate the people. Okay, am I going giving access to everybody in the organization to be able to access the application from everywhere? Or am I going to restrict that to only certain IP address? So these are the kind of the things that you are going to ask. And who all am I going to give access? That is the authorization part. You are going to create individual user IDs for each of them. Don't ever share this one ID with 10 other people, right? So that you don't know who has operated. So you want to make sure that each person has a separate ID authorization. Then you want to give the right access level. If the person requires this much access, give only this much access. When he wants more, add that portion. When he wants to more, add that portion. You don't want to directly give everything, everybody access this much, because at that point you are risking your application. So right thing to do is give the right access levels. Then monitor the server, monitor the network. How is your network? Are there any threats that you are seeing over here? Is the network security healthy? Is the usage okay? How is the software being used? Are you tracking the usage? Who is going to what screens more often? Right? So all of these you want to handle that. Incident response. Whenever there is an issue, how are you handling that issue over there? Are you at least noting down that there was a security issue and what was done to that? Right? So that is the incident response. Physical security. Of course, we went through that log, physical security, and all that part. Security policies. When a new employee joins, have you made sure that the people who are giving access know what access to give? So do you have the documentation of the security policies? Then how are you keeping your servers healthy? These are some of the things that you want to address when evaluating the security aspect of your any of the IT infrastructure. Next is the privacy part. What does this privacy mean? The confidentiality of the data that you have got. You have students' data. Are you maintaining it confidential? Have you signed a non-disclosure agreement with all of your team members over here? Have you conducted this enough sessions for them to understand that this data is confidential and should not be shared with somebody else? Again, going back here, are you providing the right access level, minimum access level? And are you getting the user consent before sharing the data with somebody else, right? And the data retention and deletion. For example, if you're a large organization or a very old organization with about 50 years and you have the past data, how long do you need to retain that data in the same server? Can you move that data which is not accessed to another server, backup server, keep it in the backside and don't always access it. Don't make it accessible to anybody in the front itself. So that's another thing that you want to address. Retention and deletion. What is your policy? You don't have to delete the old data, but you should have a policy to understand what exactly you are going to do with the older data. Are you going to keep it? Are you going to archive it? Are you going to completely delete it? Next is accountability. Who is the owner for each of this data part? So that's the thing that you want to address. Now let's come to the threat. Whenever you maintain a large infrastructure, you want to make sure that you are protected against the attacks in terms of the malware. You strictly want to tell all your team members not to download any application from the internet which is from an unauthorized source. Because when you download something, a malware, and put it in a server, you are risking your server. So you want to protect against that. Phishing attacks. Somebody sends a mail saying that, oh, get 20% discount on so many things by clicking here. That could be a phishing attack wherein they will track, okay, what's your bank number, bank account number, user ID, password, and then may use the same one to make a real transaction elsewhere. So that's a phishing attack over there. Then there is a hacking. What is this hacking means? Somebody who is not supposed to access the application may log in and access your data. That's kind of that's called as hacking. Denial of service. What does it mean? The load on the system may be so high. For example, somebody keeps on calling you every minute on your mobile phone. That's an example of denial of service because your phone is constantly ringing. You pick up, say hello, and they disconnect. You disconnect. What is happening in that period? Next 1 or 2 hours during the denial of service, you are not able to speak to anybody else because your phone comes always busy. So now, are you handling this in your the security part? Then there is an insider threat, right? So, are you making sure that perfect integrity is maintained among your team members? Physical theft, fire, all of these, some of these cases. Then guessing the passwords, no easy passwords. Then there is a human error where somebody neatly writes, this is my user ID, this is my password, this is the server name, this is the server user ID, this is the server password, and paste it on the server itself. That's an open invitation for somebody else to log in. So you want to make sure that you reduce or try to eliminate the human errors only. So these are all things that you need to address when you have any of the IT infrastructure. Okay. Then the next one is the budget and cost management. What is this budget? So whenever you come up with a new application, you want to do a thorough analysis of how much investment is going in getting the new application. Upfront application, how much is upfront investment, how much is required? How much are you going to spend on the training part? How much on the personal part? Because there is a travel over there is accommodation over there, they have to come and stay here, then you have to give the training. So there is a personal cost. And then there is a vendor and contractor cost because they have to come over here and then give the training or maintain the application. Then there is a data management cost because as your data grows, your backup may not be sufficient. So you would need more and more capacity. So that's again extra costs, right? Then you have the security cost because earlier you were just keeping your server or your old machine right in the one small room, but now you got to put it into the data center. You got to put a lock over there. You got to make sure that people simply don't go there, right? All of these require additional investment. That's a security cost. Networking cost, you got to draw the bigger landline. You got to put a network infrastructure. All of these are one-time costs that you see over here. And lastly, the compliance and regulatory things, including what are the reports that you need to generate, who do you need to share, and so on. Okay, so this was all one-time cost you had related to the budgets. Next, continued cost. Whenever you are running the application, you want to make sure that your application is to the most possible extent having the latest software. So you got to constantly upgrade it. Gone are the days wherein you buy a software, it works for 20 years without any issues. The life of any new software is anywhere between 3 to 5 years if you don't upgrade it. If you upgrade, constantly upgrade, it can go for decades together. So upgrade and enhancement cost should be part of your budgets. Next is cloud service, right? So whenever you want to give your access to the students, right, you need to make sure that you are subscribing to the cloud services. You are subscribing to the necessary database, necessary services that you require to maintain that cloud. Then there is the renewals because vendor comes, deploys the software, there is an annual maintenance charge, there is a renewal charge. All of that you want to plan it. Then there is the monitoring tools you want to buy. How is the usage level? Again, you subscribe to that. And then you have got the consulting and professionals. You want to enhance the system, right? So for that, you want to engage the external people who will come, sit with you, understand the requirement, prepare a document, help you draw the requirements, help you draw the roadmap. That's the cost of this consulting and professional and this monitoring things. So these are all the continued costs. Then in addition to both of these one-time costs and then continued costs, you have the long-term spend wherein you need to provision for the cost overrun. You wanted to spend this much, but you wanted this change, this change, this change, this change. Instead of doing 20 changes, you end up doing with, instead of doing the 20 item, developing 20 items, you develop 50 items. So of course, that is a cost overrun, right? So you want to plan for that cost overrun when doing the budget. And you also want to make sure that you have budgeted for major enhancements every few years, right? Okay. So that's a long-term spend. Then scalability and future growth. Your organization is this much, your infrastructure handles this much, and now your organization happily has grown this much. Then you need to make sure that infrastructure has scaled up to that new level. So that is the scalability and future growth that you need to keep in mind while doing the any budget estimation. Disposal and decommissioning. That's another important thing. So today, you can't simply go and throw a PC anywhere with the data, right? You need to make sure that you take out the hard disk, put it in a proper way that hard disk will never get used anywhere. And you have your old machines, you just cannot dump everywhere in the landfill. You got to call that recycling, electronic recycling facility, give your items to them and get a proper certification saying that you have handed over these materials. Otherwise, it becomes a compliance issue because you are not properly disposing your electronic goods. So that's the disposal and decommission costs of this. Then there is a contingency fund. So you have your entire infrastructure. What happens if there is a no network for one day? What happens if the power supply goes for 2 days? Do you have the generator backup? Have you put enough UPS over there? These are all the contingency funds that you need to keep in mind when you deploy a system, because the software will not ask saying that, okay, I need a UPS. But if there is no power for a long time, you need a bigger, better capacity UPS, right? That's a part of the extra spend that you need to maintain. Then business continuity and DR exercise, right? You need to constantly perform this disaster recovery exercises. You need to simulate a scenario where your server has gone down and then you are closely tracking whether your team members are fully prepared to bring up the new application in less than a few hours. So for that, you need to allocate the budget. That's another long-term spend. Then you have a lot of these operating costs to make sure that everything is running smooth. So when you get a software, doesn't end simply by getting a server, putting a couple of people, develop the software and let it run. Instead, you want to make sure everything is properly, thoroughly planned. All right. Now, other areas. Project management is there because there are so many changes that are required over here. You got to handle those. You need a full change management, the project management methodology. You have vendors because the vendors may change. Somebody who is in support, you want to get another person for supporting something else. So you need to handle those vendors. Then the testing and quality assurance. How are you making sure that your requirements are thoroughly met? How are you ensuring that you are thoroughly compliant with the government regulations? Cultural and organization factors you need to handle. And lastly, sustainability and long-term maintenance. Let me spend more time on this number 18, sustainability and long-term maintenance. That's one of the most important items. So what does the mean? First one, whenever you deploy a new software application, you want to make sure that it is perfectly aligned to the business. And it's as very much aligned to the business and the changing business goals. So it could be as simple as adding a new country to your business. You are starting in a new course. Is your software able to handle that or not? Right? So that's a part of the sustainability. Then the second is technology trends and best practices. There are some of the beautiful interactive development environments like Visual Basic 6.0 was a beautiful application that we used earlier. But now Microsoft is no longer supporting. They have changed the technology landscape that wherein Visual Basic 6.0 is no longer supported. So you want to make sure that if you have an old application, at the earliest possible, you will migrate to the newer version of that. So that's your long-term continuity plan. Take example, this floppy drive. Many of us have seen that 5.4 inches or 3.5 inches or even regular CDs, right? Now, how many PCs have any of this? No floppy drive, no CD drive, and no that disk drive. What happens if you have the data in any of those formats? Again, it becomes the responsibility of the IT manager to make sure that before the technology totally becomes redundant, you as much as possible take the data out from that and put it into a cloud or somewhere. So that is the technology part that you want to address. Vendor risk management, right? You know, how are you ensuring that your vendor is strong? You are dealing with the people who are there for years together, who will stand with you for years together. Because when you deploy a software, it is not the question of 1 or 2 years, it is the question of decades together. I have seen many times where somebody else developed the software, somebody developed the software, they were using it, and that person moved on elsewhere, and the entire software became not at all usable. What you want to make sure, you want to partner with the right vendor who has history of long term, who is committed to that particular area and is able to stand with you for a long, long, long time. So that is the vendor risk assessment you are going. And knowledge transfer. You know, people leaving the job, going elsewhere, retirement, these are very common. So as an IT manager, you want to make sure that the knowledge is always available with at least one other person instead of only one person. Because if that person is not available, the other person is able to immediately get started, right? And you also want to develop the procedure where what should be the retirement procedure. Even better, if you have, when somebody retires, you want to make sure that in your organization, that retirement person has to come to the person retiring, has to come to the IT manager, get a certification saying that, okay, IT doesn't have any issues in his retirement, or he has handed over everything, right? Because the knowledge is in head. So you want to make sure that the IT department knows when somebody is retiring so that they do the planning to ensure that the knowledge goes to the next person. Then lack of budgets in a year. This is a major issue that you see here. Is your software able to run in a standalone mode, in a lower capacity mode? So you were using the software this much. Now, for whatever reason, you don't have budgets, you want to scale down the application, you have two options. You shut down the server. What happens? Everything is gone. Instead of that, if your vendor is offering capacity, earlier I had 100 users, now for whatever reason we want to have only 20 users, the vendor should be able to smoothly scale it down so that whenever your budgets improve, you are able to scale back to the next, the improved levels of the service. So, ability to handle the lack of or reduced budgets in a year. Then data archival. How are you moving your data into the new one? Another server. How are you taking the backups? Moving to another system, that's another one, right? Because whenever you have an application and your requirements are so high that if your existing system is not able to support, and then you want to move to the new one, do you have that plan? How you take the data out from this application, export the data from the old application, import into the new application. So whenever you sign up with any software, you want to make sure that the exit plan is also part of your planning. So this is the sustainability and long-term continuity. Like this, there are total at least 18 different categories of the complexities that you want to handle whenever you go with a new application or as a part of your software technology implementation. Now let's go to the next slide. How Easylib helps. So let me go back to the very first slide. We will spend 1 minute or 2 minutes on each of these complexities, and I will explain how Easylib makes your job easier. First, the title is Freedom from Complexity. We want to make sure that you as an organization, you as a college are focusing on imparting quality education to the students. improving the research papers counts, get a better international recognition, because that is your core area. We want to make sure that we give you the best software, and then we take care of as much complexity of these that you will face otherwise. First, requirements. What we have done the studies of these different brainstorming sessions, study of the different RFPs, different requirements documents, what is done elsewhere. Lot of these we have studied and developed the software which helps you run your entire organization, starting from admissions, attendance, student master data, staff master data, timetable, examinations, attendance, the generating the marks cards, certificates, alumni management, placement management, transport, inventory management, service desk, sales desk, and many, many, many more. So we have done all the groundwork, and then we are confident that when you partner with us, you are getting the benefit of requirement analysis done by us already. You just simply start using this application over here. So that is where we help. Second, drawing the roadmap. Again, thanks to the customers who have been giving the inputs. They tell what is their pain point. They tell what is their long-term roadmap. So we are a product company. That means we get the requirements from different sources, put our own imagination, and come up with the software which will help you run for a long, long, long time. So we will work with you to define the roadmap within this entire Easily framework, about 50 different modules that you are seeing. We will work with you to closely help you decide which module you want to go live. Again, you are in a safe hands when you partner with Easily over here. Third part, technology option. Here, when you partner with Easylib, you don't have to worry too much about your technology, because only responsibility or only expectation at your end will be get a mobile which will open the cloud version of Easylib software, Easy One software, and get a PCs which have a good browser where you can open the software. We take care of the entire cloud infrastructure over here. We have partnered with AWS, partnered with Netigrity, partnered with NextGen, Dell, and many other players, and we have our own data centers to give a good cloud infrastructure for your use. When you sign up with Easylib Cloud, it frees you up from a lot of these technology related complexities that you will face otherwise. Many of our customers already are using this application. 130 customers use our Easylib Cloud version. For them, opening the new application is as simple as go to browser, Google Chrome, Safari, Edge, or anything, type their college name.easylib.net, and the Easylib software opens over here. And at the end of the day, you just log out. We take care of making sure that the software is deployed on the right server. We procure the server, we deploy the software, apply the server patches, take the daily backups, do the disaster recovery exercise, keep the data accessible only to you, and make sure that many of the complexities that you would otherwise face, you don't have to face here. We even make sure that this particular data backup is sitting in another city over there, so that if at all there is an earthquake in the data center, your data is still sitting somewhere else. So that is how we make your life easy. Next part, configuration and customization. What we have done in Easylib, the inputs have come from colleges, schools, universities, Indian universities, overseas universities, different organizations of different kind, research organizations, because they all give the inputs. And when we write the software, we have written the software such that it can be as much customization as possible over here. For example, if you go to our demo.easylib.net, this front page itself is customizable. It doesn't require a redevelopment at all. So you want to put the new picture, new announcements, and new menus, no problem. It's all customizable in the software itself. So next is security policies, backups. Lot of these things are already addressed by us. And then when we deploy the software, we closely work with you to make sure that the software looks like an extension of your organization, like your own logo comes over there, your college name, your color coding. All of these are possible in Easylib to configure and customize the Easy One application. So by the way, Easylib, we use that brand name for the company and also our library automation software. Easy One and Easy UMS is the entire unified management system that we have got over here. Okay, all right. So the data migration and conversion, what we have done, working with lot of you, we understand that your data could be elsewhere in some other application. Many people have come from other application to Easylib. Many of them have come from Excel to Easylib, right? So we have developed a lot of these data migration utilities wherein you simply go to Easylib. I will show you simple examples where we have done that also. It's as simple as logging into Easylib. Go here, administrator, I am logging in. You have student data sitting elsewhere. You want to get to Easylib. Simply go to the student master data module here. And there is an import facility here. You click on it, you give your source file, all these fields are there, you map it, and then you click import, all your data comes in easily. So no worries related to, okay, whether I have to give an exact this format and should I give it exactly like this? No, you can simply give your Excel as long as all these fields are there. Even the order may be different. The first column, second column, third column need not have to be in the same order. You just give that Excel, we will work with you to get the entire data imported in Easylib. And with Easylib, the data migration effort reduces to only a matter of days instead of months together. I have witnessed a couple of organizations where even for a library of about I think 1 lakh books, the data migration went for about 4 or 5 months, right? But with Easylib, it's a matter of 1 week. Maximum 1 week, all your data can come into. Okay. So now this is the data migration. So we address all these things to ensure that as much as possible, your 100% data comes into the newer one. And whenever we face complexity, we work with you to inform, okay, this is where we are facing the difficulty, what we should do. Right? So through that expertise that we have developed, we make sure that your data migration is a smooth exercise. All right. Next, user training and adoption. Again, what we have done is that we have developed the training in 3 parts. When you become our customer, you get a 2-hour crash course to learn about the application, right? So that way, the day the software is implemented, within a couple of days, the entire data is imported. Then you get a quick training. You are able to do the immediate transactions same day or next day. Then the next level, we have an in-depth session of a few hours or a few days to go over in detail about some of the more used parts of the application. And lastly, we have created nearly 200 videos on different modules wherein you can watch those videos and then develop more expertise and nitty-gritty, the critical parts of these different applications. Less used, but critical parts also you can get expertise by watching those videos. So 2-hour crash course, then 1 or 2 days of detailed training, and then a long-term video-based training is what we have got. And then we have also been now working on releasing the videos in different languages. Couple of days back, we had Easylib training webinar on Tulu language. Before that, it was in Hindi. Before that, in Marathi. We all, of course, have it in Kannada, English, and then we are expanding in multiple languages. And those of you who are attending this webinar, would like to partner with us to record the videos in your local language, we'll be happy to work with you and make the training happen in your own language. So Easylib makes this job easier to ensure that all your people get quickly start using as well as get acclimatized with this new application. All right. Next, user support. This is another thing where we have done a lot of groundwork to make sure that the things are very simple. The simplest thing is when you become customer, you are have any difficulty or issues, you simply click on support. It connects to our CRM system and you are able to open a new ticket. You are able to see your past tickets, see what is happening, what stage it is in, and whenever you want to open a new ticket, you simply click on new ticket, open it and submit it, and the clock starts ticking. And then we have all these things, including the help required, production issues, production requests, bugs, enhancements, new features, all different kinds of tickets you can open in Easylib. And we also have the change management and the sales desk and the service desk, which will help you even give your students access to open a ticket whenever there is a requirement over here. So again, Easylib makes the job of handling the entire user support very easy. All right. Infrastructure. The whole thing you don't have to worry about, or the majority of the things you don't have to worry, because your software is residing in our cloud servers or with the external providers like AWS, the Netigrity, Azure, and others. So that way, you have to focus only on the internal infrastructure part. The software application part is handled by Easylib. Again, it takes out lot of complexity on your end, makes the job of handling this whole thing easier. All right. The next one, integration. Again, with the experience of having worked with multiple vendors, we have developed a lot of these import routines, lot of these export routines, lot of APIs. The best example that you see is this import facility for the members, correct? The student data, very easy to import. Similarly, you can import the data of the inventory. You can import the data of the companies for your placement module. Import the data of books as far as the library is concerned. Import data of all your digital collections that you have got. The e-books, all of that can be imported in Easily. So a lot of these imports and exports we have developed to make sure that integration becomes as smooth as possible. The next is the scalability and performance. Again, what we have done is by working with you, we definitely follow all these 5 practices of this different um, handling this scalability part. We have tested the application at a certain load level, higher level, even higher level, and then working with you, we will configure your application on a right service server. And if we find that you are going over capacity, automatically without your notice, it will be put into the newer, bigger environment. There may be cost inflation, that's a different story, but your availability will not be impacted because there will be a smooth upgrade from the existing to the newer infrastructure. Right? Again, that's done at our end. And as far as you are concerned in using the application, before the upgrade, you will be going to your college.easylib.net. After that, also you will go to the same link. It will be smooth, transparent scalability that will be handling it here. The next one, security, privacy, threat. Whatever is internal to you, you need to handle. Whatever is related to the application and our data center, again, we handle at our end. And from your side, and you're using the application, you want to make sure that you don't share your ID password with somebody else, right? And in fact, we are also constantly improvising our own server security, our own infrastructure, our own new policies, new analysis. All of that you are doing at our end, including the new one that is going to come up is OTP-based authentication for your faculty to log in. That's in the new enhancements. All right. So the next is budget and cost management. So this is the most interesting part over with benefit that you will get by partnering with Easylib. All of the server infrastructures, all of these things are, you don't have to worry about many of these things. When you sign up with Easylib, you are signing on a per user based, per module based pricing, flat pricing on a yearly basis. Suppose you pay about, let's say, 5 lakh rupees per year for using this application for n number of students. That amount remains more or less 5 lakh per year. Okay, there is an inflation over there. There is a dollar price increase. Okay, 5 lakh may become 5.2 lakh or 5.5 lakh. It's not expected that 5 lakh becomes 20 lakhs, right? So we want to make sure that your pricing is as predictable as possible, and then it follows a smooth curve wherein you focus more on using the application rather than having to think about how do we handle this extra budgetary requirements. So again, easily pricing for the library starts at 36,000 rupees per staff per year. For the library portion, including the physical library management, digital library management, in-out management, the student access. Suppose you want only the, let's say, the cataloging part, you don't need the digital library in-out, the cost will go down further a little bit. and you have a second staff, instead of 36,000, we add another 18,000. So if you have got 10 staffs at your college, the library, you are using the software, your pricing will be predictably between 1.5 and 2 lakhs per year, right? And if the volume goes up, again, we have the volume discount. Usage level is low, again, we have that particular thing taken care. So we try to make sure that your budget and cost is well within the limit, and we try to offer least cost of ownership. Total cost of ownership should be the least. So that means your server cost, your if you go back here, right? Initial investment, training, personal cost, vendor, all of these you consider, put a cost, and you partner with Easylib. Partnering with Easylib should have the less cost. So that's our goal. Okay. All right. Next is all this project management, vendor, training quality. All of these are, many of these are handled at our end, and we work with you closely to make sure that your organization really doesn't have too much hiccups in upgrading to Easylib application. And lastly, the sustainable and long-term one, we are working on developing the software, providing to the education segment for about 20 years. The software today is running at um, 500 customers in Karnataka, 100 plus customers outside Karnataka in other parts of the country, and at least 20 other installations in other parts of the world. Right? Total 630 customers. When we go to our support, every day we get about 10 tickets. That shows that our application is stable. And even with the 600 customers, we get only about 10 tickets per day. And it also shows that we are constantly working with the customers to make sure that their things are handled on a prompt basis, right? The moment you have difficulty, you open a ticket. It may take 1 day or 2 day to respond and resolve the ticket, but it will never be forgotten. So that is the assurance that we give over you. And because there are so many customers using, and we have established all this infrastructure already, you can be sure that you will be able to use these applications for multiple years to come over here when you partner with the Easylib. So, so the software is hosted on the cloud. It offers end-to-end features over here. If you see, it's if I click on menu, if I just scroll down, you can see 50 of these different menus over here. I'm just scrolling down. You name it. This library portion itself, there are almost 10 modules over here. Then there are student master data. There is the placement management, enrollment related one. And then what we have done while developing the application is that we go as deep as it is required to give you a good application. When this grade section, grade batch. So, for example, in the college environment, you have grade and section, school environment. But when you go to a medical college, you have a batch also because the practicals are conducted as per the batch. Of course, you can enroll as per the batch over here. You take the attendance once a day when in the school, and you take attendance per class when in the college. Again, the attendance modules handles both of them, right? And then if you have an external event and you conduct the take the attendance elsewhere, Easylib has the import facility where you can simply import the attendance data over here, right? And we have the ability to support the new education policy as well as the old education policy in our Easylib. So this has been possible definitely thanks to all of you who have been giving us constant inputs, the inputs from different academicians, different professors, the tenders and the RFPs, interaction with you all, the end users, and our own groundwork has helped us develop all these modules in these. So just grade class enrollment, we saw that itself, there are about 50 screens, right? Right? 50 screens, no? So many of the screens are available over here. And in the library, you go here, again, there is a depth over here, right? So the cataloging module has got another 60 or 70 screens here, including the stock verification, withdrawal of the books, how do you take the reports, the statistics, all of this. Then we have even one more module, which is a new one, that's a SQL report. If you don't have some report in Easylib, and you want a new report and then you want to immediately write it, no problem. Even that facility is available in our Easy One application. So Easylib is here to work with you for a long term, and the software is fully ready and it can be used any point of time. Is it perfect? Perfect software, I think, is an oxymoron, because the moment we think it's perfect, the requirements will change. Again, it comes back to 90%. So we work with you to make sure that you get the best possible software over here. And again, we are open to definitely doing more and more enhancements as requested. Right? It's a proven software used in multiple places, has lot of bright new ideas, and has lot of interfaces with other applications. So again, hosted on cloud, it's ready software. It's a proven running at hundreds of clients with a robust background. Myself, I have worked with both Indian as well as the overseas customers for the last 25 years in a mission critical application. Same thing with my two other founders, and all our team members are joining our team only after thorough test and passing all the necessary exams. So the entry criteria itself is much high as far as joining Easylib is concerned, and we make sure that we give you the best possible software to all of you. And as far as the live demo is concerned, the software is huge. Takes about anywhere between the quick overview can be about 30 minutes, and the in-depth one may go for hours together, because just the cataloging module to cover this in-depth is about 8 hours over there. And the grade enrollment, class enrollment, that particular another 4 hours training. Attendance module, another 4 hours. So, of course, that is to go very deep, but to cursory glance for each module, you want to give at least 1 hour. Those videos are already available. If you see, go to any point of time, you can go to easylib.net. This is our website, easylib.net. Okay, so today's webinar information is there. You can see the freedom. That's what you will get when you partner with us. Okay, lot of complexities from the freedom is freedom from many of the complexities what you get when you partner with Easylib. And if you go down here, thanks to Ranganathan. So we did a groundwork on the contributions of Ranganathan as far as the library field is concerned. We are very happy that he did so much work, and then he's a guiding force for a lot of librarians. So we paid our tributes by writing a good blog about his accomplishments, the books he wrote, the areas he worked, and lastly, how Easylib has been working in making his 5 laws implementable in the library. Similarly, as far as the campus automation is concerned, again, we have done the lot of groundwork. So now, again, going back to our site here. So this was the site. The I went to Dr. Ranganathan's one, then go down. So this is the numbers. There are a lot of videos are available. At any point of time, you want to see Easylib videos, simply go to easylib.net, go to videos. You will see all these videos here. So many videos of the past webinars here. Here, we thank all the people who have joined this webinar and see these videos, develop expertise and or develop familiarity with the application. And when you are happy, you just give us a call. And here are my numbers. My name is Vasudev Deshpande. I'm one of the founders of this company. My number is there. Sidhu is our sales manager, and Hanumant is handling the head of our support. Supriya is one of our team members. Just call any of us, or simply open a ticket if you are our customers, and we'll be happy to work with you and ensure that you get the best software in the smoothest way possible. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, and now open to questions.